尊敬的各位来宾、女士们、先生们，大家上午好。Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. 金秋9月，丹桂飘香。在这收获的季节里，非常荣幸能够与大家相聚在2023国际人才可持续发展论坛。我是中央广播电视总台 CGTN 主持人张善辉。It's my great honor to be with you today, and also in this gorgeous season in Beijing, in this beautiful autumn, to be with you in this 2023 Global Talent Sustainable Development Forum. I'm Zhang Shanhui, the host of CGTN China Media Group. It's my great honor to be here with you and also in this beautiful hall at this beautiful moment. 世界未有之大变局正在加速演变，可持续发展的理念也越来越被更多的人关注和认可。国际人才作为全球发展的重要支撑，如何更好地促进国际人才的可持续发展，正在成为你中有我，我中有你的新时代人类发展课题。所以今年的论坛主题是共同议程，共同未来。Unprecedented changes continue to reshape the world, and the concept of sustainable development keeps attracting more and more attention from around the world. And international talent is one of the most important factors in the global development. So how can better promote the sustainable goal? And so how can we also build an interconnected world? This is a question for all of us. Therefore, the theme for this year is Common Agenda for a Shared Future. 本次论坛由国际人才组织联合会主办，欧盟亚洲中心联合主办，四海英才研究院、首都会展集团、国际学校在线承办，全球青少年可持续发展大会组委会协办，全球化智库提供学术支持。并且呢，还与 ETS 中国与英翠国际教育集团合作的战略合作，所以呢，我相信今天的论坛将会是一场充满意义并且充满思想的辩论的盛会。This forum is sponsored by the Association of International Talent Organization and co-hosted by the Europe-Asia Center, Cosmopolitan Talent Research Institute, and also with Capital Exhibition Group, the International School Online, and the Global Youth Sustainable Development Conference Organizing Committee. Academic support for this event is provided by the Center for China and Globalization, the CCG. And thank you also for the strategic cooperation with the ETS China and Entrepreneur International Educational Group. I believe that today this discussion will be very thoughtful and meaningful. 首先，请允许我隆重介绍出席今天论坛的各位领导和嘉宾。First of all, please allow me to introduce the leaders and guests attending today's forum. They are 国际人才组织联合会主席丹尼斯·西蒙先生 ，Denis Simon, President of the Global Talent Organization, 全球化智库联合创始人，并且兼全球化智库秘书长苗丽女士。Mabel Miao, co-founder and Secretary General of the Center for China and Globalization. 昆山杜克大学学术事务副校长麦飞文先生。有请 Scott McCarran, the Vice President for the Academic Affairs of Duke Kunshan University. 我们下一位到场的重磅嘉宾是全球化智库副主任兼高级研究员，原 DXC 科技有限公司大中华区总裁刘洪先生。有请 Mike Liu, Vice President and Senior Fellow of CCG and former Managing Director for DXC Technology in Greater China Region. 同时啊，我们现场的另外一位重磅嘉宾是西班牙驻华大使馆教育参赞玛利亚·路易莎·欧巧·费尔南德斯女士。Welcome, Maria Luisa Ochoa Fernandez, Counselor of Education at the Embassy of Spain in China. And we have also another guest, 微软亚太研发集团运营及公共事务副总裁商荣女士。We have Shang Rong, Vice President of Communication and Public Affairs for Microsoft Asia Pacific R&D Group, Microsoft. 同时，光临我们现场的另外一位重磅嘉宾是 ETS 中国区总裁王梦妍女士。Marinda Wang, Managing Director for ETS China. 另外一位嘉宾，英翠国际教育集团中国董事总经理蒲依婷女士 ，Olivia Bu, Director of China and Integrate Educational Group. Welcome. 与此同时，还有2位重量级的国际嘉宾，目前暂时无法到场，但是他们也专门为本次的论坛录制了视频。We also have 2 very important guests who are unable to attend today, but they did record it, especially for this forum. So we'll later on check them out. They are 欧盟亚洲中心联席主席、联合国前副秘书长埃里克·索尔海姆阁下。His Excellency Eric Sorleheim, Co-Chairman of the Europe-Asia Center, former Under-Secretary General for the United Nations. 另外一位是联合国教科文组织前战略规划总助理干事汉斯·道维尔先生。Hans Dovio, who is the former Assistant Director of General for the Strategic Planning of UNESCO. 稍后我们还会有更多的重量级的嘉宾陆续的参与到我们的论坛的过程当中和我们的每一个分论坛的讨论之中。他们是墨西哥驻华大使施亚德阁下、联合国妇女署中国代表办公室安思琪女士、联合国志愿人员组织中国国别女主任张楠女士，同时还有欧洲联盟驻华代表团国际发展合作参赞孔爱玲女士，瑞士驻华大使馆科技与教育处副主任傅思梅女士，以及联合国驻华协调员办公室伙伴关系官员娄亚女士。同时，即将参与到我们下午的这个辩论和讨论当中，还有国家督学清华大学基础教育研究所原所长、中国民办教育协会国际特色学校分会理事长王殿军先生。Let me also do a brief introduction in English for all the guests joining us in the afternoon. Later, we'll be having more guests joining us. They are His Excellency Jesus Sead Kuri, who is Ambassador of Mexico in China, Ms. Simiti Ariel, who is the country representative of UN Women China, will be joining us later today, and Ms. Zhang Nan, Country Director for United Nations Volunteers, UNV China. And there will also be Ms. Ellen Kelly from the Development Counselor of the EU delegation to China, and Ms. Media Dux, who is Deputy Head of Science, Technology, and Education from the Embassy of Switzerland to China, who will be joining us later today and this evening and this afternoon. And Ms. Lo Ya, who is the UN Partnership and Financing at the Office of the United Nations Residential Coordinator Office. And we will have also Mr. Wang Dianjun, National Education Inspector, also Director of the Division of the Basic Education Researcher at the Tsinghua University Institute of Education, who is also the former principal of Tsinghua University High School. 此外，今天上午和下午即将光临我们现场的嘉宾，还有来自全国各地以及国际学校的校长们、理事长们。在此，我仅代表论坛方和论坛的组织方，向出席本次论坛的领导与嘉宾表示诚挚的欢迎和衷心的感谢。同时温馨提示大家，本次大会将进行全程的图片直播。大家可以扫描议程上的2维码进行观看或者保存大会的图像内容。In addition, we're also principals and directors of the international schools from all around the country who are here today. On behalf of the forum organization, I would like to express my sincere gratitude and sincere welcome to all of you participating today in this forum. And also a warm reminder for everyone participating today is that all the photos from this forum will be simultaneously posted online. So to see the photos, to check out the different photos, you can simply scan the QR code on all your agenda and watch and also save the wonderful moments of this wonderful debate and this wonderful event. 那么接下来就让我们进入正式的开幕仪式环节。国际人才可持续发展论坛是聚焦人才的全球性人才的培养、流动以及可持续发展的国际性论坛。作为本次论坛的主办方，国际人才组织联合会也同样的关注并且促进国际人才的可持续发展。接下来，让我们用热烈的掌声欢迎本次论坛的主办方——国际人才组织联合会主席丹尼·西蒙先生致辞，有请。Now I invite Mr. Danny Simon, President of the Global Talent Organization, to give us the opening speech.
Good morning, everyone. It's great to be here with you today at this Global Talent Sustainable Development Forum in Beijing. I first came to Beijing in 1981, and you can see many amazing changes that have taken place in this city, of course, and as well as throughout China. My name is Dennis Simon. I currently serve as the president of the Alliance for Global Talent Organization. This organization have become increasingly important and proactive in every dimension you can imagine about the issues of talent. The issue of global talent today is a particularly important issue, not only from a policy perspective, but also as a real practical matter. Countries, governments, businesses, and universities are all trying to figure out new and better ways to recruit, educate and train, manage and nurture, and cultivate and retain high-caliber talent. It is because of this rapidly expanding concern and interest in talent that AGTO was founded. We are an NGO registered in Hong Kong that is focused on working with and across the value chain of organizations that are focused on various aspects of the talent issue. We have positioned AGTO to serve as a conduit for facilitating communication, coordination, and activism among talent-related organizations, everything from search firms to educators and trainers to HR directors. Our core objective is to contribute to the development of shared data and information, as well as common terminology about the evolving quantity and quality of talent as seen from the perspective of the broad spectrum of agencies interested in talent issues. We sit at the initial stages of our mission as we were founded only a few years ago in Paris with the support of French President Macron. We retain a very ambitious agenda. Our desire is to find ways to work efficiently and effectively with persons like yourselves who recognize and understand the catalytic nature of talent in the process of economic development and technological advancement. I believe everyone will agree that we live in incredibly challenging times. The open, globalized world that helped to facilitate the almost unencumbered movement of capital, information, know-how, and people across borders from the late 1970s throughout the 1980s and 1990s now seems to be encountering some roadblocks. We find ourselves in a situation perhaps best called fragmented globalization. The surging concerns about national security, technological advantage, and economic competitiveness has led a number of countries to take concerted action to reduce their openness as a means of protecting their so-called national interests. Unfortunately, This apparent turn away from globalization, even if it's partial right now, has had a direct impact on global talent mobility, reducing some of the opportunities and, of course, some of the benefits to be gained from the smooth, unencumbered movement of people across borders and cultures. While many hope that the huge upside benefits versus the costs derived from globalization will be better understood and the current trends can be reversed, are still very unclear. In fact, it's very unclear if and when a reversal can actually happen. We need to have a better understanding of the direction of where the world is headed. Perhaps the recent announcements coming out of South Africa and the BRICS countries can help point us in a new direction. This morning, I want to point to three major trends that we must keep in mind as we think about the optimal ways to work together to address the national, regional, and global aspects of educating high-end talent. The first idea is the idea of fluidity. Understanding the idea of fluidity is important because change is ubiquitous. It is all around us. It is the one constant that we can count on even as we try to put in place better planning and assessment mechanisms for meeting our respective talent needs. Educators have to pay special attention because it means our curriculum and our pedagogies have to constantly adapt to these kind of changes. The second idea is turbulence. Understanding the presence of turbulence is important because we have entered a period of tremendous uncertainty. In a recent McKinsey report, based on their data, they noted that between 2019 and 2022, 8.6 million occupational shifts occurred in the United States, and they predict that that number of shifts will grow to over 12 million by 2030. Our respective and collective efforts to plan for the future in terms of education and training, specification of numbers, identification of skills, and talent deployment and utilization remain extremely challenged because it remains hard to put our hands around the definitive needs and specific skills required to meet the emerging needs now and into the future. We are experiencing significant occupational and geographic mismatches today. Here I'm reminded of Thomas Friedman's recent comments about what he calls the agile mindset. Thomas Friedman, the author of The World is Flat, has pointed out that the most important skill for the workforce of the 21st century is, and I quote, learning how to learn. Because our talent needs will continue to evolve and change, we ideally need to educate people who possess the analytic flexibility, adaptability, and comfort levels to constantly get reskilled, re-educated, and repositioned as their careers evolve and the needs of the workplace change. Finally, the last issue I want to point out to is what I call accelerated technological change. At a gathering like this, I'm sure there will be extensive discussion about the impact of artificial intelligence on every aspect of education, how we teach, how students learn, and how we solve problems. The onset of the digital economy makes this discussion even more imperative. Over the next decade in particular, AI promises to have an incredible, almost revolutionary impact on education and talent decisions, as well as in the overall workplace. Some experts have suggested that the current period of change will be so dominated by the rapid accelerated deployment and utilization of artificial intelligence that the forthcoming decade of change will feel like the last 100 years of change compressed into 1/10 of the time. I know at the University of North Carolina, where I recently was, we have spent the last 6 months preparing for the new school year so that we can begin to adapt simply to the impact of ChatGPT and how it will radically change academic life on campus, changing teaching, grading, student projects, assessment, etc., etc. Living and working during such a dramatic upheaval promises to be extremely exciting and exhilarating, but it's also going to be very unsettling. As someone focused on global talent concerns, I believe that we will be needing to work together much more closely if we are to avoid the onset of so-called talent wars and the reliance on beggar-thy-neighbor policies that turn global talent issues into sources of conflict rather than collaboration. I believe we have a tremendous opportunity to prepare for the future through educational cooperation and collaboration rather than zero-sum competition. By sharing our knowledge, leveraging our collective data, communicating our concerns through open and frank dialogue, we can moderate the impact of fluidity, we can reduce the levels of turbulence, and we can soften the uncertainties generated by rapid technological change to make global talent issues something around which we can coalesce through collaboration and support. I hope at this meeting we can begin the process of moving down that road in unison towards a shared future of working together. AGTO is prepared to spearhead a series of high-quality education and talent-focused cooperation projects. These projects could encompass joint research programs, cross-border training, and innovation-driven partnerships that bring together global experts, researchers, and professionals in the field of talent and education. Such a package of endeavors would help to, I think, elevate the landscape and help to promote more innovation and creative thinking about important education and talent issues ahead. So in closing, let me thank you for allowing me to share my perspectives with you this morning. I hope I've given you something to think about, and I wish you all a very successful meeting. Thank you very much.
谢谢 ，Thank you。谢谢丹尼斯主席的精彩致辞。Thank you so much for very thoughtful speech from Danny Simon for your wonderful speech. We've talked about the use of the ChatGPT, the use of the technology, and also the use of the learning capacity, and the capacity of using the technology. So now we're moving forward to another very important speech delivered by 欧盟亚洲中心。那我们现在马上现在进入到下一个环节，是欧盟亚洲中心的负责人的致辞。欧盟亚洲中心是致力于推动欧盟与亚洲可持续合作发展的智库机构，它的总部位于比利时的布鲁塞尔。The EU Asia Center is a think tank dedicated to promoting the sustainable cooperation and also the development between the EU and Asia. And its headquarters is located in Brussels in Belgium. 作为本次论坛的联合主办方，欧盟亚洲中心联席主席、前联合国副秘书长埃里克·苏尔海姆阁下虽然无法今天亲临现场，但他也在百忙之中专门为论坛录制了致辞视频。Our next guest is not be able to attend the meeting today, but he recorded a video for all of us today attending here. His name is Eric Solem, co-organizer of this forum, and also the co-chairman of the EU Asia Center for the former UN Under-Secretary General, Eric Solem. Let's take a look on the screen now what he's to say with us, with the public. 请看大屏幕。
Hello, everyone. Ni hao. I'm so pleased and honored to be asked to speak at this most important conference on how we mobilize sustainable talent all over the world. I give tribute to the Minister of Education of China, to the Center for China and Globalization, and to the Europe Asia Center for hosting this very important event, because this is spot on what we are lacking for the 21st century. I think you're all aware that we are facing a triple environment crisis on planet Earth. We are destroying nature by the day. Climate change, of course, is a huge challenge. And we are fighting a war against pollution. True, China has largely won the war against pollution, but globally it's still a big issue. The good news is that we have all the finances, all the technologies and all the policies we need to come out of this triple crisis and create a more beautiful and wonderful planet. What we really lack is maybe political will sufficiently and skills. Let me start with political will. Of course, here China has a huge advantage because there is a very strong political will coming out of the center from the president himself, really putting environment on the top of the agenda. The president has mobilized slogans like green is gold, ecological civilization, harmony between man and nature, and a beautiful China to mobilize the Chinese people to do better for planet Earth. And I just experienced also in more small scale the importance of political will, because it cannot just come from the top, it must come from citizens and business. I made a podcast with Mats Nipper. Mats Nipper is the CEO of Ørsted, a very remarkable company from Denmark. Ørsted was once Dong, an oil company. Now it's a 100% wind company. They moved from the fossil fuel industry into the future renewable industries, and have done that with enormous power. I asked Mats Nipper, but wasn't it difficult? What did the staff say? What did the people who have invested in the company say? What did the customers say? Didn't you face difficulties? He answered, it was all about the will. As long as we made the decision and we stood by the decision and we continued the transformation, the staff, the customers, the shareholders, they all supported it. So the political will is the first we need for the green transformation. The second, which is sometimes not on the political agenda, are skills. Without skilled people, we simply cannot get the green transformation done. I just saw a report from the United States of America basically saying that the number one impediment to develop the solar industries in California are skills. There's simply not enough carpenters and mechanics who know how to install the solar panels, so it cannot get done. There's a long waiting list to get solar panels on your garage or your village home or wherever, because the skills are not there. So developing skills is front and center in the green transformation. Let me make three main comments on skills development. First, we need a variety of skills, not just one. We need, of course, city planners or state planners. We need IT people. We need engineers. But we also do need all the skilled workers, the ironers, the carpenters, the plumbers, all those who can implement the green revolution out there in reality. And here China has an enormous advantage compared to basically every other country in the world, because China has an industrial culture which doesn't exist in most other places, and China has a huge and skilled workforce of people who can implement the green revolution. Secondly, we need to realize that most people who will make the planet greener, they're already there. They're not young people who will just join the labor market. They're already in the labor market, already working. Most of the people who will implement the green revolution in the next 20 to 30 years are already there. What does that mean? Well, we need to do on-the-job training, re-skilling of people, adult education, not just education for young people, but for adult. And we need to respect on-the-job training, not just formal exams, but the life experience you do get if you have been in an industry for very long and know it in and out. That should be recognized, sometimes also with the formal papers. Just a couple of examples which I experienced recently in China. I was in the Yarlong River Valley in Sichuan, where they will now make an enormous investment in solar, in wind, in hydropower, and integrate all this with the most high-tech information technology. Because to do all this, you need so many skills. Yes, you need the people to plan it, the IT engineers, but you need also all the carpenters and plumbers and the skilled labor who can build the dams, make the tunnels, or put up the windmills or the solar panels. Moving on to Kobuchi in Inner Mongolia, which I just visited, you see solar panels to the horizon. There is an enormous amount of solar panels. Of course, to get that done, you need a skilled workforce. You can put them up, but you can also maintain them later. And because under the solar panels, you do in Kobuchi, they do the growing of potato or tomatoes. They are raising chicken. So we also need the skilled agriculture workforce. You can work with the skilled renewable workforce to make this a success. And thirdly, of course, China and the world need education system which is practical, which teach all the sustainable trades which the future do need, and which mobilize all talent. Talent can be, of course, both sexes, all genders. It can be from the rural or the urban areas. It can be people who have a family background of a lot of knowledge, but it can also be people who are upstarts and coming from nowhere. Let's get the talent of everyone. China, at its best historically, had a meritocratic system where you could make it just by your talent. China, of course, has some remarkable historical figures who came from absolute nowhere to make their mark on history. Maybe the most extreme example is the Hongwu Emperor, the founder of the Ming Dynasty. His entire family was wiped out in famine. He was a begging monk, but just by his talent and his enormous energy and his ability to work with other people, he made it to the emperor from absolutely nothing. In the 19th century, Sheng Guofan, who was probably the most important person in China in the 1800s, his father was sitting for any number of exams to be a mandarin. He never succeeded, but his son finally succeeded, and again, coming from rural Hunan to become the most important man in the state was no small road to walk. But there are so many other examples. Of course, also many modern leaders of China have come from a very modest background to the top. So let's nurture all talents, not just a few. So to summarize, we need to mobilize all sorts of talent, not just one type. We need to understand that most of the people who will run the green transformation of China and the world are already there. They need to be retrained, and we need to focus on adult education. And finally, let's mobilize the talent of every sort of people, also making it possible to come from nowhere to become a leader and a talented worker or a business executive. Thank you so much for listening. I think this conference is so important because, again, we have the finances, we have the policies, we have the technologies, but very often we lack the skilled labor to make this transformation happening. So thank you so much, and I wish a complete success with this important event. 谢谢。
谢谢，感谢埃里克·索尔海姆阁下。联合国教科文组织实际上也一直致力于推动各国在教育、科学、文化领域开展国际合作，以此共筑人类的和平与可持续发展。作为全球青少年可持续发展大会的名誉顾问，联合国教科文组织前战略规划助理总干事汉斯·道维勒先生也同样的为大会录制了视频致辞。Thank you very much for this sharing. And now let's welcome a representative from the UNESCO who is committed to promoting the international cooperation among countries in the fields of education, of science, and also of culture, with a long-term goal of the building peace and also the sustainable development for mankind. As an honorary advisor for the Global Youth Conference on Sustainable Development, Mr. Hans Stolvio, who is also former Assistant Director General for Strategic Planning of UNESCO, also recorded a video speech for us. Please take a look. 请看大屏幕。
你好，我是 Hans Dorville，在巴黎，法国。 Hello, I'm Hans Dorville, and I'm speaking to you from Paris in France. Youth and sustainable development are intimately connected because today's young people are the ones who will inherit the world that we leave behind. Sustainable development is a key agenda for the future of our world. It refers to meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. This means that for a shared future, we need to find ways to grow and develop our economies, societies, and communities without degrading the environment or depleting natural resources. Young people are key stakeholders in sustainable development because they are the ones who will be most affected by the decisions we make today. They will also be the ones who will have to deal with the long-term consequences of our actions. Therefore, engaging and empowering youth in sustainable development initiatives is critical to ensure a sustainable and shared future for all. There are many ways in which young people can contribute to sustainable development. For example, they can promote sustainable lifestyles by adopting environmentally friendly practices such as recycling, reducing energy consumption, and using public transport. They can advocate for change by raising awareness about environmental and social issues and campaigning for policy changes at the local, national, regional, and international levels. They can innovate and create new solutions to sustainability challenges, such as developing clean energy technologies or designing sustainable urban planning solutions. They can engage also in sustainable entrepreneurship and businesses that promote environmentally friendly products and services, providing employment and contributing to the economy, while also reducing the environmental impact. Overall, youth involvement in sustainable development is critical for ensuring a sustainable future. By empowering young people and involving them in decision-making processes, we can create a world that is equitable, environmentally sustainable, resilient, and socially just for future generations. Building a global talent pool to promote sustainable development is essential for addressing the complex challenges our world faces today. This is a long-term endeavor that requires investment, commitment, and cooperation at all levels. By fostering education, on-the-job training, collaboration, innovation, and inclusivity, we can develop the expertise and skills needed to address the pressing sustainability challenges facing our planet. Sustainable development encompasses economic, social, and environmental dimensions, covering all 17 Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs, defined by the United Nations General Assembly in its Agenda 2030, adopted in September 2015. Talent is required from and for various fields to drive progress. Establishing more sustainable mechanisms for talent cultivation and development worldwide involves creating systems that not only identify and nurture talent effectively, but also align these efforts with the broader goals of sustainable development. Building such mechanisms requires a coordinated effort involving governments, educational institutions, businesses, non-profit organizations, community organizations, and individuals. By integrating sustainability into education, providing diverse learning opportunities, and promoting collaboration, we can nurture and build a global talent pool capable of addressing the world's most pressing sustainability challenges. Here are now some key strategies to accomplish this grand global objective. Let us take the first section, education and training. We can embed sustainability principles across all levels of education, from primary to tertiary levels. We can ensure that students are exposed to sustainability concepts and challenges from an early age. We can invest in quality education at all levels with a focus on STEM, that is science, technology, engineering and mathematics, and on environmental sciences and social sciences. We can expand access to online education and open educational resources to reach learners worldwide, regardless of geographic location or financial resources. We can promote lifelong learning and continuous skill development to adopt and to adapt to the SDGs, and by inducing professionals to update their knowledge in sustainability areas. We can promote diversity and inclusion in talent development to ensure that underrepresented groups and marginalized communities have equal opportunities to contribute to sustainable development. We can promote gender balance in the formation of a diverse and inclusive talent pool. We can implement assessment tools and metrics to evaluate the impact of talent development programs on sustainability outcomes. We can use these data to refine and improve all our strategies. And we can develop recognized certifications and credentials in sustainability fields to validate and standardize talent development efforts. Let me move to the second section of strategies, empowerment of local talent. We recognize and utilize the skills and knowledge of local talent in sustainable development efforts. Local experts often have valuable insights into their region's unique challenges and opportunities. We can promote experiential learning opportunities and capacity building initiatives, such as internships, fieldwork, and hands-on projects that allow talent to apply their knowledge to real-world sustainability issues. We can encourage multidisciplinary education and research, recognizing that many sustainability challenges require collaboration across various fields. And we can ask governments to play a crucial role by providing financial incentives, scholarships, and grants for talent pursuing sustainability-related careers. Let us turn to innovation and entrepreneurship. We can foster innovation ecosystems that encourage entrepreneurship and the development of sustainable technologies and solutions. We can leverage technology and digital platforms for global knowledge sharing and collaboration. We can establish research and innovation hubs focused on sustainability, bringing together researchers, educators, policymakers, and industry experts. We can establish mentorship programs that connect emerging talent and startups with experienced professionals in sustainability-related fields. And we can develop sustainable funding mechanisms for education and talent development. This might involve public-private partnerships, endowments, or philanthropic initiatives focused on sustainability. Let us look at corporate responsibility. We can encourage corporations to invest in talent development programs focused on sustainable practices within their industries. We can promote corporate social responsibility initiatives that support sustainable development, education, and training. And we can induce businesses to support talent development by offering internships, apprenticeships, and job opportunities aligned with the SDGs. Let us look at global collaboration. We can encourage international collaborations and partnerships between universities, research institutions, and governments so as to share knowledge and expertise. We can facilitate collaboration in talent development by creating opportunities for relevant cross-border learning, research, and projects. We can foster global networks and communities of practice where talent can connect, collaborate, and share knowledge and best practices. We can facilitate exchange programs and scholarships to promote cross-cultural learning and collaboration. And this leads to international organizations. Intergovernmental organizations like the United Nations and its organizations, the World Bank, OECD, the Commonwealth, the Francophonie, regional organizations, and development banks, other international entities and initiatives, foundations, and NGOs play a crucial role in talent development for sustainability. They offer valuable platforms for collaboration and funding opportunities. And finally, let us look at policy and advocacy. We can develop policies that incentivize talent to work on sustainable development issues. Tax incentives, grants, and research funding can encourage talent to focus on the right direction. We can advocate for policies that promote sustainable practices in industries and governments. And we can raise public awareness about the importance of sustainability talent development and advocate for effective policies and investments. All this indeed is a huge agenda which requires a contribution by each and every stakeholder. I thank you for your attention and wish this forum much success. 再见。
谢谢。Thank you, Hans Stovju, for his sharings, especially his insights on the collaborations between government, collaborations between countries in today innovation world. 非常感谢汉斯·道维尔先生的分享，其中讲到了政府之间的合作，政府之间如何用更创新的方式加强合作，提高学生的素质。当今世界呀，同时也面临着多重的挑战。但从国际人才角度来说，全球也面临着许多新的机遇。如何更好地促进国际人才的培养与发展，也是全球化智库一直以来的研究和探讨的主题和重点。So today today in a very multiple challenging world, and there are many crises and many uncertainties today are intervened and imposed. However, from the perspective of the international talent, the world also offers many opportunities. How to better promote the cultivation and also the development of international talent is also a very important subject for the CCG's development and for the CCG researchers. 所以现在让我们有请全球化智库副主任兼高级研究员原DXC 科技有限公司大中华地区总裁刘红为论坛致辞，有请。Now let me welcome Liu Hong, Vice President and the Senior Fellow of the CCG, the foreign, also the Manager Director of the DXC Technology Greater China Region, to give us a speech. Welcome.
Very good morning. We just enjoying those fascinating speech. I'm going to do it in Mandarin, so then we can probably save some time. 尊敬的各位来宾、各级组织代表、领事馆代表、国际学校代表、国际人才培养的专家学者、女士们、先生们、朋友们，大家早上好。作为2023国际人才可持续发展论坛的智库支持机构，全球化智库始终致力促进和推动国际人才交流、培养与发展。今日，习近平主席先后复信美国华盛顿州美中青少年学生交流协会和各界友好人士，美国史蒂威将军后人。习主席指出，中美关系的希望在人民，基础在民间，未来在青年。两国人民应该加强交流，增加理解，扩大合作，为两国关系发展不断注入新动力。可以看到，国际人才的交流仍然是促进世界和平稳定发展的基础。2020年，全球化智库发起了国际青年领袖对话项目，意在为不同的文明、不同的国家、不同领域的国际青年搭建交流思想、互学互鉴、增进友谊的对话平台，倡导各国青年发扬人类命运共同体理念， 为完善全球治理汇聚更多国际化、年轻化、多元化力量。该项目得到习近平主席的回信和认可。在前不久，在习主席回信2周年之际，我们举办了国际青年领袖对话项目2023年度论坛，收到了来自全球10多个国家领导人和国际组织代表的贺信。可以看到，全世界都在关注国际人才的培养与发展。本周一，全球化智库与北京市商务局在北京服贸会论坛期间联合举办了第10届全国企业全球化论坛。虽然与会的各界代表在探讨贸易和合作和发展的问题，但是归根结底，许多人谈到的深层次的需求都是国际人才的培养、合作与发展。可以看到，国际人才可持续发展的命题正在被越来越多的人所关注和重视。如何更好地促进国际人才持续发展，也需要更多的智慧和思想的火花。期待本次论坛能够为大家带来更多深入的思考。预祝本次论坛成功，谢谢大家。
谢谢。感谢，谢谢廖红主任。Thank you very much for this very thoughtful and also inspiring speech, talking about the future between China and also other countries around the world. 下面呢，请前排的各位领导和嘉宾上台合影留念，请摄像师为我们记录下这宝贵的一刻。Now I will invite all the leaders and guests in front of the front row coming on the stage for a family photo. And I will also invite the cameraman to record this very precious moment. Please welcome everybody in these 2 front rows. Welcome on the stage. 我们一会儿的主题论坛1，主题呢为构建可持续国际人才培养与协作机制。那么，同时大家现在有10分钟的休息时间。So now let's take a break for 10 minutes, and our theme for the first forum later will be building a sustainable international talent training and collaboration mechanism that will begin in 10 minutes. 但是同时，大家休息的时间，也可以看一看我们会场后方哈，包括我们会场的2方左右两边有很多相关的可持续发展目标的创新案例的参评，这些都是很多学生的获奖作品，所以大家可以抽空的时候10分钟的时间稍微看一看。At the back and also on the 2 sides of the venue, I invite you to take a look at some of the award-winning work from students participating in this special Sustainable Development Contest. So please go and take a look. I hope you get a very cheerful break. And so we'll continue to our next session, which is very important for the forum. 欢迎大家回到2023年国际人才可持续发展论坛。接下来呢，让我们进入正式的主题论坛1，构建可持续的国际人才培养与协作机制。国际人才培养协作呀，是世界进入全球化发展的重要特征。Welcome back to this 2023 Global Talent Sustainable Development Forum. And this time we will enter directly to the first forum, which is about building the sustainable international talent training and also the collaboration mechanism. 在培养与协作中呢，我们可以与学生交流、丰富、优秀自己的文化背景、文化知识，同时也更好地理解和了解不同文明、不同文化之间的各美其美、美美与共，如何更好地促进和构建可持续的机制。我们在这个论坛上将会听到很多嘉宾的想法与见解。The cultivation and also the collaboration of international talent is a very important feature of the world's globalization. And in the process of training and collaboration, international talent not only learn to rich and excellent knowledge from one the other, but also to build a sustainable promotion mechanism And during this forum, we'll be able to listen and to understand what others are thinking about with all our international guests. 那么，首先就让我们以最热烈的掌声欢迎墨西哥驻华大使施亚德先生上台致辞，有请。First of all, warm welcome to the keynote speech delivered by His Excellency Jesus Seat Curi, who is Ambassador of Mexico to China. Welcome.
Good morning. I thank the organizing committee of this Global Talent Sustainable Development Forum 2023 for its kind invitation to give these remarks before your discussion on building a sustainable mechanism for global talent cultivation and collaboration. The issue of developing talent is one that I hold very dear to my heart. Before becoming ambassador of Mexico 2 years ago, or before being involved in the public sector as Mexico's chief negotiator of the new NAFTA, which I was a few years ago, the USMCA, and Vice Minister for North American Affairs, I devoted a great chunk of my professional life to academia and to teaching and to leadership positions in education, including many years in Hong Kong and in mainland China. During my tenure as a professor, I attested the increasing need we all face to prepare students for the demand of this technology-driven, fast-changing world. The need to spark curiosity for them to learn about their village being the world, and also to acquire knowledge that is being taught in other parts of the world, and to be critical about it. Know the world and benefit from the world. Of course, for that goal, the teachers need to previously understand that knowledge to properly teach it. What I'm saying is teaching and learning from only your own domestic sources of information or philosophy does not help to enrich the students' abilities in an increasingly interactive world, and does not provide them with the necessary tools to face the real world and join the labor market of this changing world. The challenge then is to bring more universality to the learning. One way to achieve this, a well-established traditional way, is by promoting and deepening academic exchanges and people-to-people contacts, something that is hugely beneficial for the students and for their universities and for their countries and for the world. I am a great believer, and it's something that I'm promoting as Ambassador of Mexico. Student exchanges, very good. This not only serves the purpose of the exchanging and development of ideas, but it also furthers the mutual understanding among peoples of different cultures, history, traditions, and helps erase misperceptions, wrong ideas, or prejudices. I will be honored to be followed by the Vice Chancellor of a distinguished international university in China, which very much speaks to this interchange of ideas and sources of inspiration for the benefit of the students. I don't need to remind you profession to which I was dedicating my time some years ago, working for another similar international university in China. I don't need to remind you that distant countries often develop dangerous frictions and mistrust. We read about them every day in the news these days. Knowing each other better breeds mutual understanding. And mutual understanding breeds trust. And mutual trust breeds friendship and, of course, peace. But unfortunately, not all our students can have those experiences. What is important then, if we want to develop people and talent that can stand side by side with their peers that have had many more opportunities, what we need is to teach and learn with a global perspective, not only for the select few that can go on exchange or that can be subject to these international experiences, but for all the students in our countries. To this end, as a second line of approach to these issues, I would like to see more courses. Courses, of course, in subjects like history or literature or sociology, but even in mathematics or physics or sciences, medicine. I would like to see more courses that are jointly prepared by professors in two distant countries. The same course prepared by two people, here and far away somewhere, where the delivery is done by those two, if possible presentially, bringing the professor, or virtual when necessary, learning from COVID, with presential backup from the local partner. But we need these truly binational teaching products. I really would like to see a lot more of that and growing. And of course, I would like to, in support of this and for its own sake, I would like to see expanded virtual courses, not only because we have to because of COVID, but because it's a great vehicle for the future, where your teachers teach my students, and my teachers teach your students. We should have more of this. Courses offered across partner schools, I said, and partner universities. The beauty of digital cooperation is that it gives us the potential to touch all the student body. There are even people in the former, for example, the former United States Supreme Court Justice Stephen Breyer, who expressed the view that judges, and I'm going to a very extreme example, the Supreme Court of a particular country, who held the view that judges should pay attention, read, consult foreign judicial philosophies and judgments to seek guidance for their domestic issues, and that it would be too pretentious to think that you cannot find value in other countries' ideas but your own. This kind of thinking has to be more and more the norm in the highly interactive world of today and tomorrow. Now, I have been talking about the need for our young talents to learn about the increasingly globalized world we live in, where interactions among our countries, for good or for bad, are hugely important and affect us all more and more. We have to learn about the thinking and the feeling and the culture and the lives. But there's a second issue that I want to raise, connected to the first, but it's a separate issue. It's perhaps a deeper challenge in the teaching, a deeper challenge for the universities, that we have to bring into the training, into the formation of our students for the future. And I refer to our exponential rate of progress, of change. The increasingly breakneck speed of change of technology. And with that, speed of change of the economy and of society and of the world. We were made biologically for the rate of change of 1,000 years ago. And the world today is cheating us as humans by having us adapt at speed. Well, education has to incorporate that. Some say that the world will need over 1 billion people to be re-skilled in the rest of this decade alone, by 2030, moving from traditional industries to new industries. But the problem is not just that. It's not just one-off this decade. It is more like a new constant challenge of increasing urgency and importance as we move towards the future. For example, it looks increasingly like doctors, medical doctors, and engineers will more and more find it necessary, some years after leaving university, to renew the stock of knowledge they first acquired. Of course, doctors and engineers already do adapt. They have to learn, it's always been the case, new techniques as are developed and as they arrive. But the way ICT and technology are changing in these professions and in many professions is accelerating by the day. And the day is approaching when, I would say, people aged 35 or 40 will not have studied in college almost anything that they need to apply in the workplace. Learning in the workplace is common, but more and more, I believe, the training at university, whether in technical subjects or in humanities or in all the subjects, the training in college has to be adaptive to the life of the students the following 50 years. So this dichotomy, college and then 50 years at work, I think has to be blurred. My point here is that technical schools and universities, I believe, will increasingly need to develop new products beyond the traditional first degrees in university and postgraduate courses. Perhaps we will need degrees that, like our cars, need to go for a full service every 10,000 kilometers in the shape of entirely formal degree updating programs every so many years after we leave college. And I should add that in the increasingly globalized world and rapidly changing technological world that we have, the need to constantly attract the best talent will become more and more pressing. And the opportunity for remote work is increasing the competition of companies to recruit or attract the best possible talent, expanding their options beyond the national borders. If you don't believe me, ask LinkedIn. So, the subject of the topic of this conference must therefore move to the top of the agenda of our countries and of our industries and of our universities, I believe. This brings me just to note, by way of conclusion, that Mexico and China are doing bilaterally a lot to promote and nurture talent in an increasingly complementary, cooperative way. And I'm very optimistic for the future. After the lifting of pandemic restrictions early this year, we have resumed our exchange programs, as every country has. Then this month, we are pleased to be holding the 4th Mexico-China Forum of University Presidents. So I'm welcoming, a couple of days from now, over 40 university presidents from all over Mexico, who will be meeting and interacting with a similar number of their peers from Chinese institutions from all over China. I am certain that these kinds of exchanges will strengthen one of the objectives of nurturing talent for the future. Strengthening our bilateral ties in education and addressing jointly the speed of change in society beyond what I said I read as being what our DNA was designed for, is to me something that requires serious thought, preparation, and real collaboration. In this fast, interconnected world, one of the important clues to understanding and learning is to work cooperatively, sharing information and ideas. In the end, this is how human beings have advanced as a global society. No one holds the key to all the developments and innovations. Cooperate, cooperate, and cooperate has to be the answer. The best ideas that become reality are always the product of previous ideas and innovations from different societies. Never alone, always working together. Thank you.
Thank you. 谢谢. Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador. Cooperation, cooperation, cooperation. This is the word that Mr. Ambassador has said 3 times, which is very important in Chinese culture. 重要的事情说3遍哈，合作，合作，还有合作，指的是中国与墨西哥的合作，中国与世界的合作，世界发展中国家之间的相互合作，包括发展中国家与发达国家之间的合作。再次感谢施亚德大使的精彩演讲。接下来为我们带来主旨演讲的呀是昆山杜克大学学术事务副校长麦飞文先生。杜克大学是世界著名的高等学府，而昆山杜克大学呢，也是全球化发展的中外合作办学的代表。让我们一起聆听创新机制下中国与美国国际人才可持续发展有哪些机遇。So thank you very much for coming today. So now let me hand the floor to Mr. Scott Shen, who is the Vice President for Academic Affairs of Kunshan Duke University. Great honor, and please, thank you.
Thank you very much. I feel somewhat inadequate following my colleague, His Excellency the Ambassador of Mexico to China, and an expansive vision of sustainability in global talent development. What I'm going to talk about now is a much, if you like, more modest vision of this, a very particular vision of how curriculum and programs at Duke Kunshan University may, to some degree, to a modest degree, support my colleague's vision. So I wish to talk about this for a variety of different reasons, because I think some aspects of our program at Duke Kunshan University are ones that really do sustain these ideas about global talent cultivation, and some of the limitations of these programs perhaps we can address. To give you a sense of our university, although we began the university in 2013, we're now in a very significant and different stage of development with the initiation of our undergraduate program in 2018. And it is in 2018 that I first came to Duke Kunshan, first as a faculty member and then more recently as Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs, and working with my colleague Dennis Simon, who was at that point the Executive Vice Chancellor at DKU. The principles that we have organized our undergraduate program around are as shown here. And these are principles that I think address some of the needs of a sustainable vision for future global talent cultivation. As the Ambassador of Mexico has said, we are living in a time of unprecedented cultural, social, political, climate, environmental change. My own background as a faculty member is as an archaeologist. So what archaeology is fundamentally about is timescales. And I have some idea of how humans react to very, very rapid change on these different timescales. And the things that allow humans to react and to creatively and productively adapt to new environments are not rigid bodies of established knowledge, but rather they're habits of mind, habits of social and cultural and intellectual interaction that we are trying our best to inculcate to students within these liberal arts programs at Duke Kunshan University. This is a highly interdisciplinary program. We think that the established bodies of knowledge siloed out in different domains such that people do not interact across domains are not suitable for the particular environments that we're going to face in the rest of the 21st century and that our students are going to face. So that we have come up with a set of very interdisciplinary majors spanning the entirety of different fields of study, but combined in different ways. I'd note that one element of this as well is flexibility, that we can combine interdisciplinary majors and disciplinary tracks within those majors to come up with new combinations that may better fit the needs of our students and the talent cultivation of our students going forward. And these are complex questions. One of the things that's already been referred to in this forum already, and that I'm sure that we'll be talking about further later on, is the question of generative AI, artificial intelligence, and the ways that it's going to change how humans deal with knowledge, how humans interact with one another, and how they absorb knowledge, and how knowledge is generated, in fact, if it's not being generated by a human mind, but by a software construct. It's important to realize that as we do that, just as humans lie, we already know that generative AI hallucinates. It tells us things that are untrue. So again, the necessity for teaching students the habits of mind, the critical habits of mind that allow them to evaluate statements in ways that they can get a truth value. They can judge the utility of statements. These are, again, not obvious issues, but they are ones that are going to be extremely important going forward. So we start, our undergraduate programs start with 2 years. It's unusual in most non-American contexts, but our undergraduate programs start with 2 years of very much globalized and very general interdisciplinary courses and knowledge production, and students only move to one of these interdisciplinary majors at the end of 2 years. So they have a common experience of learning how to learn in their first 2 years, and then move on to more specialized disciplinary knowledge at the end of that period. And I think we all have our experiences of university ourselves, and with the perspective of much more time than most of the people in this room, I can look back 40 to 45 years at my undergraduate education and look back at what was useful and what was not useful. Some of the most useful things I learned were not the sort of key elements of disciplinary knowledge, but rather the habits of mind that I did learn. Learning technical drawing and Fortran programming as an engineer in the late 1970s and early 1980s did not, in fact, turn out to be very useful over the long term. But learning how to learn did. You can see, I think, here some of the direct advantages for the students of these forms of liberal arts education, and also implicitly some of the challenges that are associated with them. This is the sort of information that I provide to the parents of our prospective students, and parents are, of course, very interested in the utility and the outcomes for their children. Student learning in small classes, faculty expertise, and generally very, very good outcomes. We know from a great deal of data in the United States, for example, that students from these small undergraduate liberal arts programs have disproportionately successful outcomes when it comes to graduate schools and jobs, even compared to large research-oriented universities. These are the most successful programs in the United States when it comes to placing undergraduate students. We have a set of research centers that are associated closely with our undergraduate and graduate programs, and the next phase in our campus development is going to involve expansion of our research capability. At this point, a relatively small number of graduate programs from Duke University. When I say that we began the undergraduate program in 2018, everybody knows the chronology of the last 5 years. The first years of development of our program have been undertaken in the context of COVID. It's a very challenging and interesting time to be developing an undergraduate program. Over the 4 years that I've worked in this role, I've hired approximately 170 faculty members at DKU, almost all during COVID. So we've grown very quickly, and we've added capabilities that we did not expect to add. These liberal arts undergraduate education programs are very much seen as face-to-face programs, small classes, a professor like this in front of a small class teaching intensively. And what we had to do, of course, as did many universities, is go online and develop our capabilities in digital education. I've talked about the advantages of these forms of liberal arts education. I think as we go forward, given the rapid change that my distinguished colleague has talked about, the habits of mind, the skills that we provide to our students are the ones that are going to best suit them for a rapidly changing future. A future where, as he says, people may need to go in, bring their degrees in for a service change every 10,000 kilometers. I think that's an excellent analogy. But these programs also have challenges. They tend to be very small. They can only accommodate relatively small numbers of students if you're talking about small classes. Our faculty-student ratio at Duke Kunshan University at this point is approximately 10 to 1. We're never going to be very large in a face-to-face context. So we become, and this happens very frequently, these institutions then become de facto institutions for the education of elites. How do we get around that? The capabilities in digital education that we've acquired during COVID may be one way forward, one way to bring aspects of our program to a larger public, to more students, to a more varied group of students. And so we're beginning now to explore the capabilities and the possibilities of liberal arts education in a global and larger scale future. We've just instituted about 3 weeks ago an Institute for Global Higher Education at DKU, led by a thought leader on global universities from Duke, Noah Pickus. And what this is going to explore, we're doing it for a variety of reasons. One certainly is to raise our profile in China, where we're based in Kunshan, but also to explore the possibilities of extending a liberal arts education more widely using digital technologies, using new forms of pedagogy and assessment to reach more students. And we think that that's an important aspect of DKU's development. And this is actually going to be something that's going to be important for all of our institutions. My own work as an archaeologist takes place in Africa. Populations in Africa are ones that have historically not been well serviced by these new developments in higher education. So I'm very much aware that all of our institutions and all of the innovations in sustainability that we will be talking about need to reach populations that in different parts of the world, not merely in Africa, that have hitherto not been particularly well reached. So anything that we can do under these circumstances, I think, to explore ways of developing liberal arts programs into the future, innovating these programs in the future is going to be useful. So as I said, a very small and particular introduction to our plans and some of the ways we're thinking about sustaining talent at the undergraduate level and globalizing that talent at Duke Kunshan University. Thank you very much.
谢谢，感谢麦飞文先生的分享。Thank you very much for this sharing. And I know that these kind of cooperations has actually provoked lots of curiosities and also lots of questions from China, from the US, and also from the international world. Exactly how will this be done and how will this promote and also help Chinese students to go moving forward in the elite education, in international education, and also in innovation, as you mentioned in your speech. 下面呢，我们就将进入一个非常重要的研讨环节，主题1即构建可持续的国际人才培养与协作机制。参与本场的嘉宾啊，都是大咖，让我来先慢慢介绍一下。参与本场的研讨嘉宾呢，共有6位，有西班牙驻华大使馆教育参赞玛利亚·路易莎·欧巧·费尔南德斯。同时呢，我们有来自瑞士的声音，瑞士驻华大使馆科技与教育处副主任傅思梅。同时，我们也有昆山杜克大学学术事务副校长麦飞文，微软亚太研发集团运营及公共事务总裁商荣。那么从这个角度来说，我们可以听到来自微软的声音，来自不同的国家的声音。同时呢，我们也有 ETS 中国区总裁王梦妍参与到我们的讨论之中。那整个的研讨将由全球化智库联合创始人、秘书长苗丽主持。So a brief introduction in English to outline the importance and also the multinational aspect of this discussion that you will assist here. So we will having 7 very important guests about one discussion, how to build a sustainable international talent training and also a collaboration mechanism, internationally speaking. So we have several guests who are Maria Luisa Ochoa Fernandez, Consular of Education in the Embassy of Spain in China. And we also have voice from Switzerland, Ms. Media Dux, who is the Deputy Head of Science, Technology and Educational Section at the Embassy of Switzerland in China. And we also have voice from the US and from Duke University, from Mr. Scott McErchin, who is the Vice President for Academic Affairs from Duke Kunshan University, whom you have already heard a little bit, but he will share more in this period of discussion. And we also have Ms. Shang Rong, who is Vice President of the Communication and Public Affairs of Asia Pacific R&D Group at Microsoft. And we have Miranda Wang, Managing Director of ETS China, who will be joining to our discussion. And about this discussion, I will hand over the floor to Mabao Miao, who is the co-founder and the Secretary General of the CCG, who will animate the whole panel discussion. Welcome all the invited guests. I welcome you up on the stage. 请各位嘉宾上台。那么我就要把我的话筒交给苗秘书长。 先按照名牌做就可以。Welcome.
Thank you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I'm Mabel Miao. I'm not Mabel. Mabel is my English name, but the co-founder and the Secretary General of the Center for China and Globalization. Welcome all of you to join us today. As this is a wonderful occasion to talk about how to cultivate and collaborate for the global talents. In an increasingly interconnected world, the cultivation and the collaboration of global talent have become a pivotal factor in achieving sustainable development goals. This panel discussion aims to explore the strategies and the mechanisms required to foster the development of a sustainable framework for nurturing and leveraging international talent, addressing challenges, promoting diversity, and fostering cross-border collaboration. Today we have invited Maria Lusa and Midi Fox, Scott, Shang Rong, and Marita Wang, those distinguished guests today. Just we introduce the title is on the screen as well. We will discuss our topic respectively about how to nurture global talent pipeline, promote cross-border collaboration, embrace diversity and inclusion in global talent, and frame policies for sustainable talent growth. Our first topic takes us to the fundamental importance of nurturing a global talent pipeline. What are the gaps between talent supply and demand on a global scale? Considering the rapid changes in industry needs, today we will delve into the strategies aimed at bridging the gaps between the talent, supply, and demand. What role should the educational institutions, private sectors, governments play in bridging these gaps to ensure a sustainable talent development? The panelists on the stage from the private sector, from the embassy, from the government, and also from the enterprises. So I think those factors are already gathered here. We will also examine the pivotal role that the educational system and the institutions play in fostering and nurturing international talents. During us, we will uncover how these elements contribute to the development of the thriving global talent ecosystem. The first question is for all the panelists. What are the gaps between talent supply and demand on a global scale? So I think the order we can from my left side, from Miss Fox, from Fuchs, from Swiss Embassy.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you very much for having me on the panel, and thank you for the question. So as we've heard from a lot of our speakers before, the skills shortage and the potential reskilling problems or demands in the future are affecting us all. I can maybe give you a small insight from the Swiss perspective. So the skill shortage is also already an issue in Switzerland. Additionally to the demographic change, so the society is getting older, which is not only Switzerland, of course, but this is one thing that is affecting us at the moment. Also, the labor market is adapting a lot. So first of all, the digitalization and a lot of it that is coming. So we see a lot of focus on lifelong learning and learning on the job, that the education is not finished after graduation a lot of times. What we also see is a lot of more flexible work and different styles of work, which I see mostly as an opportunity, but is of course a challenge. In Switzerland, what is maybe special is that we have a very low youth unemployment rate that is a good sign at the moment, and we try to keep it that way. And our way to do it is we're focusing on a vocational education system that is based on apprenticeships and involves the companies. So actually the companies only put apprenticeships on the market that can be filled by students that they actually need. Yes. I will hand on to the next.
Okay, yeah. This is our first question. We have 4 questions today. So, yeah, it's
I
your
guess it's
turn, please,
working?
yes. Yeah, from the Spain Embassy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for the invitation to be here. It is a pleasure to be able to convey our ideas. I specialize in education as education counselor, so most of my participation will be related to education ideas. Well, regards the first question about the gaps, those gaps, I think, obviously, they are happening in every country. Gaps in societies that are requiring more and more specialized jobs, and also we need those skilled workers. So the whole system in every single country has to adapt to a new situation, the new demand of workers with a very high specialized training. I think for us and for many other countries, the important thing is to analyze that gap. What are the main characteristics? So if you analyze exactly what is the main component of that talent gap, how to identify, how to give priority to the fields in which those gaps are taking place, and especially to monitor how it is developing and what you can do from an education point of view to be able to compensate that gap. Of course, definitely we think education is a key component to be able to address, to be able to face those talent gaps that are happening in, I think, every single country around the world. And I think in the future, competition among countries to be able to get talent youth is going to be tough. And I think job recruiters are going to have a hard time trying to attract. So I think in the near future, we will see more and more countries taking measures to attract talent. We'll talk about different measures we are using later on. So I can pass to the next speaker.
Sure, yeah, Scott, it's your turn.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the invitation and the opportunity to talk about these very important issues. Again, as I think was obvious from the talk I just gave, I look at this from the perspective of higher education. And these talent gaps are obvious. They exist in every country in different areas. If we're the one thing I'd like to add is that if we're talking about global talent and the global competition for talent, one thing that higher education has a great deal of difficulty with is helping to educate students in cultural competencies that are associated with this. And there's only so many hours in the day, and so we risk sometimes, again, in the very fast-moving world that we're talking about, we risk becoming fixated on specific forms of talent in some cases, and not on the cultural competencies that allow people to be competitive internationally, globally. And those competencies are various. There's various ways of thinking about how we teach them. But for example, the decreasing emphasis in a number of Western countries on language training, for example, is a really negative form of dealing with a talent gap. So that I think we, as I said, to some degree, we certainly need to address the talent gaps in specific areas and specific industries, but also the gaps that we have more broadly that allow people to adapt.
Thank you. Scott, from the higher education circle, you know the universities, you know your students, how to train them, and you also know the demand I think Ms. Zhang Rong know more about demand as you're from the multinational company. I know you are very senior people in this field. You recruit and train many international talents for Microsoft in history. And the multinational companies, I believe, have done a lot of work for the China's international talents training and recruitment. So you can share some points on this.
Yeah. Thank you, Mabel, and it's a great pleasure to be able to join this discussion. And I think from the guest speakers' keynotes, we already learned a lot from the Chancellor and also from the Ambassador. From Microsoft, I think especially for the IT industry, talent's definitely the most important thing for our industry, for the innovation. So I think we are currently focusing on a couple of things. First of all is diversity and inclusion. We want to have more gender balance in terms of encouraging more girls and females to entering into science and STEM. So this starts from higher education, even earlier in high school. So that's very important. So we do a lot of this kind of promotions like a DigiGo and like ADA workshop to make sure more young talents, female talents, they can pursue their future career in the STEM area. So actually, I think a perspective was extremely important. So in terms of the development and innovation. So this was one field. Another thing is because we are entering into a deep digitized world. So we are experiencing huge transformations. All the guest speakers just already mentioned. So I think the lifelong learning mentality and the mindset was extremely important for all the people about to entering into the job market. All the people, even like myself, have already been in work for more than decades, like a couple decades. So we still need to reskill, to have more digital literacy, to reskill our competence to adapt to today's AI, era. It's including like the new technologies, breakthroughs like ChatGPT. So, which I think we could have more enabler and more tools provided by those technology advancement, like Microsoft have Copilot. So we believe so AI plus human intelligence will be in super intelligence. This was our belief. And another thing I really want to share with the audience as in this discussion is about when we're talking about from academia training, education, and in-job trainings. So we believe there's three E's to representative the skills trainings. So one is education, of course, very important. And the second will be experience, so in-work training, so on-job trainings. And the third will be exposure, so will be some higher assignments and special assignments, maybe on your job or maybe out of your current job and scope. So will be extremely important for kind of holistic development of talent. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Zhang from Microsoft. And about this question, I would like to move to Marita Wang. You look after the ETS in China. You know the examinations, text, but I think at the it's a pipeline of cultivation of international talents. ETS at the juncture of that pipeline, I believe. It's a very important part. So I think you have very strong feeling how to bridge the gap between the supply and demand. Let us know more about your points.
Thank you for Mabel's introduction to explain why I'm here. So ETS is, I think it's a good fit for this discussion and also for the conference because we are a global assessment provider. So ETS commission is to provide high quality assessment in order to evaluate learners and employees, and to make them better fit, and also to ensure the fairness of education and of opportunities. So from my perspective, because we deliver over 50 million tests globally every year. So our angle is quite unique, and we can see there are a lot of trends happening during these years. And I just want to share two trends we find out and might be helpful. So first is that we think there is a huge gap still between the hard skills and the soft skills. You know, originally, like assessment provider like ETS, we mainly focused on how to evaluate hard skills. For example, like a language competence is a hard skill. We can easily, made a lot of test forms to evaluate how the learners, they have language proficiencies. But English language proficiency can be regarded as the fundamental, traits for international talent, but that's not enough. So as from the perspective of the employers, now they are looking for more talents and how we can better evaluate and recruit talents with soft skills. For example, like the problem-solving competence, how to work with people from different cultural backgrounds, and how to be have empathy, and how to be better, agile to the environment. So those kind of soft skills are a pain point actually for employers and also for my organization, because now we are shifting from only evaluate hard skills. We want to get more engaged and through working with higher education to develop some assessment or some kind of certificates or credential, to help our learners and people to better equip them with soft skills. So that's the biggest trend, is the balance or the gap between hard skill and soft skill. And the second thing is that I very agree with Mr. Shang. She mentioned about lifelong learning, because now we are living in uncertainty, and our knowledge we gained from our higher education is not enough. We have to face the challenges from AI and from somewhere else. So we need to be better prepared our kids with the life learning skills, like how they can keep learning and how they can better fit into the environment and how they can learn even from the techniques like AI. So I fully agree that the lifelong learning skill is something that we really need to emphasize for international talents.
Great, Miranda. You mentioned that right now your company is moved to combine the hard skill and the soft skill. I think for individuals, for the people itself, how to cultivate themselves to be the true talent, I think in the 21st century should combine those two skills, the hard one and the soft one both. Okay, it's great. We just listened to the voices from the government, from the higher education and the companies and the standards companies as well about how to bridge the gap about the supply and demand of talent. We move to a second topic. We would like to shine a spotlight on the significance of cross-border collaboration. We know that the internet talents, we need more collaboration, not just among different countries and among different sectors. What strategies can foster effective partnerships between countries, academic institutions, and industries to facilitate cross-border collaboration? We will explore the art of building effective partnerships among the three parties to create a harmonious platform for global exchange. Moreover, and in what ways can technology such as digital platforms enhance exchanges of talent and knowledge on a global level? We will delve into the power of technology and the digital platform in facilitating seamless talent sharing cross borders. Okay, here are two questions for this topic. The first question is for Ms. Fox and Maria Luisa and Scott. What strategies can foster foster effective partnerships between countries, academic institutions, and industries to facilitate cross-border collaboration. Yes, maybe from you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I want to take up the point that was mentioned before about soft skills and also the focus on intercultural competencies, that this is more like an important basis, maybe even more important sometimes than specific skills. So a very, so to say, easy way to foster these partnerships is foster exchange and mobility of students and people in general. Here I mean mobility at every level, like it can be university students that follow a whole program abroad, but it can also be a summer school, or it can be a teacher's training abroad for 2 weeks, or an internship. So I think the focus on universities, there is already a lot in place. I mean, it still needs time to take up again after COVID. But in vocational education and professional training, I think there could even be more done. Like, for example, sometimes it can be hard to do an internship abroad for a short time. So in general, I would focus a lot on person-to-person contacts and on very small but concrete projects, because what we have seen in our project, or project from Swiss universities, Swiss institutions, is that small concrete things where one person or several students have an experience with other countries can then foster a lot of programs or new ideas or projects, and it's much more effective than when we come with a big program top down. So that's a bit my take on this, to really see what is there and push the bottom up concrete initiatives.
Thank you, Midi. That's interesting. I would like to end one point. This summer, I took my kids, 3 kids, to the Switzerland for summer camp. It's a cross-border experience for them. But I just search on the web. How dare I search on the web, and I find this great village camp in Switzerland. Then I send them to there. And I find it's a very amazing experience. But I was wondering, maybe in the future, those camps, those schools, institutions can have a kind of a liaison between China and the rest of the world and your country. So, the personal experience tell me that we need more international cooperation among the individual and the institutions and those summer camps. So that's very specific individual experience tell us the lessons and the stories. So let's move to Maria. You're from a Spanish embassy. I know that Spanish right now is one of the largest language in the world. So many people would like to study in your country, and I think you can answer these questions, how to, build up the kind of collaboration for among different sectors for talents. Thank you.
Yeah, there are many different ways in which countries can cooperate to be able to help into that cross-border collaboration, to try to fill that gap, that talent gap. We have been doing recently we signed an education agreement with China about education, and if you read the agreement, most of the things that are being talked here about, actually about education, about this talent gap, are also included in the agreement. I think countries can collaborate in different ways, and as it was mentioned before, you mentioned before about language skills. This is something that is extremely important in that talent gap. And I think, obviously, as you said, Spanish is a very important language. And this is something that we are also promoting. We are promoting the learning of Spanish. And obviously, in Spain, we promote the learning of Chinese. And this is part of this education agreement between Spain and China. And it's extremely important because proficiency in the language is really a very necessary skill. I think sometimes countries do not realize how important learning a foreign language is. And everybody knows English, but there are other languages that also should be required for that talent, that talent attraction, that being able to be, I would say, a skilled competitor in this talent group of people that will move between countries. And I think Spanish, I'm pretty sure everybody knows, but it's the second, the second most spoken language in number of native speakers after Mandarin Chinese, and it's the second most studied language in the world, and it's the official language of 21 countries in the world. So it's a very, very important global language. And we are realizing how here, for example, in China, more and more, obviously universities, we have every year we see the creation of more Spanish language department, but also in secondary and primary education. I think a lot of parents realize the importance of learning more than one foreign language. And we are very happy that a lot of parents are choosing Spanish as an option. So I think foreign language training is something that countries should cooperate because it is crucial. And with the language, obviously, comes the culture and the understanding. With the language is extremely linked to the culture. So learning a language implies learning about culture. And obviously, if we are aiming to move professionals or professionals to move, throughout different countries, the most important thing together with being able to communicate is to be able to communicate culturally. You can speak a language perfectly well, but you don't know the cultural codes, and that is failure, complete failure. So this is a very important important point that I would like to highlight. And obviously, our part of our education office goal is the promotion of Spanish language in the Chinese school system, and also at university level, and of course vocational training too. Another part that is crucial too for, I think, to do treaties and to do different memorandum of understandings, agreements between countries, is to be able to promote students' exchanges, not only in tertiary education, but exchanges can start much earlier. Vocational training, you have high school, even there are some sort of exchanges in primary education in some countries. So part of our education agreement with China, it also covers the idea of promoting youth exchanges together with professionals like teachers. So that is very relevant and very important to us. And together with that, I think to be able to help with developing skills in professionals. For example, another part of our job here in China is that we provide a scholarship for Spanish language local teachers, Chinese teachers of Spanish, to be able to travel to Spain, to learn more about Spain, about methodologies, about the language, about the culture. And I think this is also important, like to be able to offer those opportunities in the country in which we are now, for example, in China, where I'm located here in Beijing. So we work with that, and just recently we sent, I think, 20 teachers to Spain for a summer teacher training course. And together with this, very important, the recognitions of countries of each other's qualifications, credentials, degrees. We have an agreement since 2007 with China, in the recognition of diplomas and degrees, which is very, very helpful for Chinese students to come to our country. They study there, and then when they come back, their degree is recognized without any problem, and the other way around. If Spanish people that study here and they go to Spain, no problem at all. And I think this is very crucial also for different countries to be able to establish this partnership, these agreements, so that we can help in that flow of talent in different countries. And I think maybe I have talked too long.
So we can talk later. We have another question posed to you. So Scott, it's your turn.
I just want to underline this, again, this question of of language ability. For some time, for over 10 years, I worked with Exxon on oil development projects in Central Africa, and the management teams for those projects were primarily Canadian. As a Canadian, I would like to say that's because Exxon was just recognizing our natural talent, but it was actually because we can usually speak both French and English. That was about it. I think more generally, in terms of the question, one thing we have to recognize is that globalization and global flows, what we have at this point is a spotty globalization. We have to recognize that there are large areas of the world that are, to various degrees, shut out of these talent pools and talent flows. Again, my experience from Africa is generally in African citizens have found that movement beyond the continent over the last 50 years has gotten more difficult. If anything, we've seen a deglobalization for African talent over that period. And so much of that has to do with changes in policy in former colonial countries, for example. Working in an institution of higher education now with students from about 70 countries, one of the things we see very strikingly is the varying levels of difficulty that people from different countries experience in moving around. So that we need, in the first place, to recognize this. We need to recognize that certain countries are, to a significant degree, shut out of these sort of flows of talent, this globalization process. And we need to work to the degree that we can on ways to remedy that. And from my point of view, that involves putting mechanisms in place that help undergraduate students from some of these countries, for example. It's not merely Africa, that's where I have most experience. Putting mechanisms in place for these students, talented students from these countries, to be able to participate in the processes that we're talking about. The other thing I note, these are tremendous initiatives that everyone has mentioned here. Keeping this to some degree institution to institution collaboration at a fairly low level. Encouraging these kinds of talent flows is a game of inches, and it's one that requires a lot of collaboration on a day-to-day basis by institutions. So building up the direct contacts between the institutions that nurture and sustain these talents is going to be important.
Yes, thank you, Scott. It's a great answer I think you already gave us, is that the talent floor itself, global floor, and the globalization is body globalization as well. We will talk about that later, about the diversity inclusion. Okay, thank you. And for Miranda Wang and Shang Rong, the second question is that in what ways can technology such as the digital platforms, AI technology like ChatGPT, enhance exchange of talent and knowledge on a global level?
Thank you, Mabel. This is a very current questions. Everybody is experienced on that. So people are worried about whether AI will replace people. But we feel, I think we experienced huge productivity improvements with those kind of new technologies such as ChatGPT and Copilot. So I think it's very important for us to embrace the kind of, new technology developments, bring in some of the new opportunity and the challenges. So we all need to reskill our, skill sets to be able to adapt to this kind of a newly transformed AI era. So it's very important. And I want to add on a little bit about on the international talent cultivation from the corporate perspective. So as in Microsoft, actually we this year will mark our 25th anniversary of Microsoft Research in China. So we introduced the internship program to China about 25 years ago, so which was, I think, benefits a lot about international talent cultivation and in terms of collaboration, so we bring in a lot of international students and also local interns, not just the kind of university students in China, but also some of the international students. They be able to spend 3 to 6 months in Microsoft and doing projects, or maybe they just continue in their academia projects in the corporate environment. We also, at the same time, we have a mentorship program to be at the same time to mentoring those kind of interns. So in China, Microsoft China have a program called Silk Road to send our students and employees to the US. And also we bring in senior talent lead called Marco Polo, come to China to be mentors, to do mentorship. So I think this kind of an open and a collaborative talent exchange program helps a lot to really fostering the overall talent base, not just for a company or not just for China, but also for the entire industry. Yeah.
Yeah, Miranda.
So we believe, actually, I think technology have transformed the way that the talent and the knowledge have exchanged, making it actually easier for individuals to get to connect, collaborate, and share information across borders. So this is actually some huge advantages we get from the globalization and from the progress of our technology. And especially during the past 3 years, the online learning actually greatly improve our efficiency because people don't need to go abroad to study, and they still can get knowledge and listen to the webinars from their professors. So we do think that technology is actually advancing our education efficiencies. But like everyone said, I think the AI, especially like ChatGPT, is quite a popular topic, especially for educators and the principals, because we need to think fundamentally how we should prepare our young kids to better, fit for the AI plus human being, the environment. But actually, AI is not a new concept. It has been existing for a few decades. Like for our industry, like for assessment, we use AI to score our test for more than 2 decades. So it has greatly improved our efficiency and to ensure the validity. So that's a good thing that we must recognize. AI has greatly released our manpower to do more creative things. And also we believe that AI actually will change the educational portfolio and the scenario greatly, because we are not lack of knowledge, but we need to prepare that how we can better manage AI to get more understanding about the world and how we can better prepare ourselves for the globalization. And so in general, I believe we have to face the reality that AI will be with us in the future. And the second is that companies, especially like educational companies, we need to think about how we can better leverage the technology to empower our teachers and educators to greatly improve their teaching efficiency. For example, we are now exploring some opportunity that if we can use generated AI model to develop some test forms, especially like customized for individuals like Mabel. You can have a different test forms based on your personal experiences, but at the same time, we can ensure that it's a fair test for other test takers. So this can greatly, also motivate our learners, to get better prepared as a global talent. So I think I'm very optimistic and positive about the technology and its great impact on education.
Thank you, Marida. I know ETS is not just the assessment company or the standards setting up company. It's also a company it's high-tech one plus humanity. I think that's very important for today's education and the talent cultivation. Okay, let's move to the third questions. Diversity and inclusion. We mentioned, just touched upon this topic. I think most of you, all of you actually interested in this topic. How can we ensure equal access to opportunities for diverse talent, considering varying economic backgrounds and cultures? What steps should be taken to actively promote cultural diversity within global talent initiatives and collaboration? We talk about how to cultivate and collaborate the international talents, but I think in the coming years, in the 21st century, diversity and inclusion is a very, very important factor for global talent. So the first question is for Maria Luisa and Shang Rong. How can we ensure equal access to opportunities for diverse talent, considering varying socioeconomic backgrounds and cultures? Yes, Shang-Rong and Maria Luisa. Yes, please. Sorry, very confused.
Sorry.
Question to both of you.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Well, diversity and inclusion, I think, very two important terms to be included in the topic we are talking about, because sometimes people forget they are a group of people, a large group of people that normally does not have access to a lot of opportunities, especially because of that, their socioeconomic background. And I think, talking as a government official, I think government should try to guarantee somehow scholarships, should guarantee equal access to every citizen. We are doing in Spain we have been doing this for quite a while. It's a very big campaign about including women in the science, like in STEM. Traditionally, they always, women are not good with numbers. All these old stereotypes have been proved wrong. And we are doing a big campaign with our Ministry of Education, our departments of education, the different regions of Spain, and it's having its effects. And every year we celebrate the Day of women in science and in all these technological fields. So that's something important. And there is a lot of talent there. And on the other hand, scholarships and also to create a tertiary university, tertiary level studies and system that is available to everybody is also very important. For example, in Spain, public universities, are subsidized by the government, so their fees are really, really easy for families to access. So they also receive a scholarship. So everybody that wants to study at university can do so in a public university. So this is very important and a very good, I think, message to people. So if you want to be an astronaut, you can be an astronaut. If you want to be an architect, yes, you can. So it doesn't depend on how much money you have, but it's, you have an equal access to be able to study at a public university. Some of the public universities in Spain are some of the oldest ones in the world. So that they are very good public universities in Spain. So definitely government should guarantee affordable and accessible, tertiary education system, together also with vocational training. We cannot forget vocational training. I think it's crucial, and as we have been talking here, sometimes we concentrate too much at university level, but vocational training is becoming, and it will become, if not as important or even more important that, like tertiary level. And I think that's all, especially accessible university degrees that can be affordable for families through scholarships, through subsidized fees by governments. And I think this is important. We also have, obviously, when you study in Spain, you have the Erasmus program that obviously is also financed by the EU, which allows a lot of students to be able to have mobilities within the countries that form part of this program. So that is my mission on diversity, to get as many diverse people as possible, because that is the richness of the human race, to get diverse and be different. So
Yes, thank you, Maria. Floor is Shangrong's. Yeah.
I just a quick add on one point. There was a saying, perspective equals to 80 IQ points. So inclusion D&I is a part of Microsoft culture. So it's a foundation. So we're doing D&I not just limited to gender equality, but also including like accessibilities and also for different kind of opinions, many of the perspectives. So I think it's extremely important for us to understand, the needs from the customer. So basically, we need to guarantee the technology also be inclusive. For example, it will be available to all the people and all the different needs based on different situation and the perspective. So this was extremely important. So I think, for example, many people, they have access to advanced technologies. They can leverage the technology to build on their career and all the well-beings. But for those people who don't have access even to electricity, they will be kind of in a very totally different situation. So for Microsoft, we try to extend the technology to the next 50 billion, next 5 billion in population. So that's our understanding about the D&I. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So the similar question for Millie, Fox, and Scott, of course, and Marita Wang. What steps should be taken to actively promote cultural diversity within global talent initiatives and collaboration? Maybe from Marinda.
Thank you, Mabel. I think from different stakeholders, we should get the common consensus that it's a joint effort. It's including government, institutions, and companies, and to create an ecosystem to facilitate talent cultivation, especially for international talents. I think from our perspective, I think now ETS, we are position us as a platform, not only as a test provider, but a platform, because we have millions of test takers, and we are facilitating the higher education, and we are helping Chinese university to recruit international students. So we are facilitating the students' mobility through the services, especially through the academic support. I think that's what we are doing, and what we are continue to do is to creating more awareness for young students to be able or to be open to international exchange and to people communication. And also, I think from the government's perspective, different government and embassy, they have policies and financial support to help the local or the domestic and the international students to have this kind of exchange program. But we need to have a more joint efforts, like how we can using the social media to have a more exposure and to minimize the information gap between the government and the public. So our young students and even some rural area families, they still have the chance or opportunity, to know that actually the government is encouraging international exchange. And I think for education side, for higher education, like we have a Duke Queenshan, and we also have some other Sino-US university campuses. Those are great examples, and they also, they are very affordable. And they provide international education resources. And I think that's a super successful case that's showing that all the countries, they encourage education exchange. And also for Chinese students, even they take Gaokao, they can enjoy the international academic resources. So overall, I think it's a joint effort, and every part we need to contribute to this, the shared mission. Thank you.
Yes, so Score, is your turn.
Thank you. There's an American saying which I think is relevant here, and the saying goes like this: "Don't tell me what your values are. Show me your budgets, and I'll tell you what your values are." So the first thing to recognize here is that this is going to be expensive. If we're trying to foster this sense of diversity in the international talent collaborations, and we're looking for those people who have been left out. And historically, these kinds of collaborations have often been the province of elites. They've most definitely been the province of elites. So that this is going to require the investment of resources by organizations at all levels, both government and non-governmental organizations, and that's just a reality. We need, again, you can see where my themes come from in this. We need to be able to recognize where the gaps are, where the structural gaps in terms of access to these resources actually exist. And one thing I'll note here is that it's in some countries, most recently the United States, make it legally difficult to analyze particular kinds of structural gaps. The idea of structural racism, for example, as a very contentious topic in the United States now is a good example of that, and something that's becoming increasingly difficult to analyze. So that institutions of higher education have a role to play in doing the analytics, in doing the research on where these structural gaps exist. So I think that we have a role to play there, and certainly making use of the democratizing potential of AI, of some of these other instruments, and of the roles of institutions like Duke Kunshan in China. We will try and leverage that as much as we can.
Okay, thank you. I think the JV style school, the JV International University in China itself, as it means symbolize the inclusion and diversity itself. So it's not easy to conduct such smooth, from my opinion. So we cherish that kind of cooperation. Thank you. So maybe the time is limited. Let me pose the last question, but it's a conclusion question. Everyone can take 1 minute to conclude what you would like to deliver to the audiences. What role do governments, education institutions, private sectors play in shaping policies that support sustainable talent cultivation and cross-border collaborations? And how can policy frameworks strike a balance between promoting talent cultivation, facilitating talent development, and encouraging talent mobility? So maybe the order from you, from Ms. Fox. Everyone has 1 minute, sorry.
Yeah, I will still take the chance to, because I think it goes into the same thing, that I just want to emphasize that the diversity and inclusion is important for the overall topic, as I would even consider it, like we have talked about shortages, supply, like talent shortages and so on. So I really think it's a must-have, because if we cut down the talent pool already before educating the people, it's like we're cutting off half of the, or even more of the potential talents. So, and to go back what I said before about bottom-up and person-to-person exchanges, I think this is also important, talking about policy frameworks, about what companies can do. Like Switzerland has this very much bottom-up approach, so there is no top-down policy on we want to have that many international talents and so on, or so many international companies. But we try to be an attractive destination where people would like to come and come back, so that when they come once, they think about it again and maybe come back again. And companies play a crucial role in there, especially also in vocational education, where they really work together with the students so that the students are already in the labor market during their studies. And I think this link is quite important, that we have this practical link. So yeah, I would say internationalization in general, very important for fostering innovation, and then bottom-up approach so that we can use what is there and foster that.
Okay, thank you. It's your turn, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Just briefly say that there are different, I think, components and different elements for promoting talent cultivation and everything you mentioned before. But I just would like to highlight policy formulation by governments is very important. So governments and institutions will have to work together to try to develop this, be further. Educational institutions play a key role, joint degrees, either an undergraduate level or graduate PhDs, joint PhD programs, masters. That's also crucial for that talent mobility. And also we will see countries being more and more interested in becoming let's say, like an object of desire of that talent group. And we see more and more countries trying to take measures to attract that talent. And one of them, I think, will be visa and immigration policies to help people to move between countries or to stay. Like very recently, last year, Spain changed its immigration law so that foreign students can work more hours, and if they find a job, they can stay and live in Spain. So obviously this is a huge step for attracting students, talent, that foreign talent. And also international partnerships, very, very important too. I'm on different countries, institutions, this is also important. And again, funding and support. I think in all these, we cannot forget that funding is necessary and a good planning. And I think when we see this workforce of different countries working in other countries, it's going to be a very, very fruitful experience. So Spain is a very highly desired destination for students, and we see more and more students coming to our country, and some of them stay, and they choose it as I would say, the country of living till they retire. So I think this is also important, a good planification and funding. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. Score is your turn.
Thank you very much. I think that we have to recognize that all of these worthy initiatives towards sustainability in talent cultivation, towards global flows, towards diversity and inclusion, exist within the context of processes that may pull our institutions and our countries in other directions, so that this has to be a conscious project of sustaining and developing all of these kinds of initiatives. And I'd very much like to also emphasize the importance of bottom-up initiatives. I think that what's exceptionally important here is to knit our different kinds of institutions together as closely as possible in these projects. And it is through the connections, the day-to-day connections at the base, that this will be sustained as much as it is high-level negotiation between leadership. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Ms. Zhang.
Yeah, thank you. So my last takeaways, Microsoft CEO Satya is one of the great example about international education. He was from India and got higher education in US and then take about 20 years and become the CEO of Microsoft. He is a strong advocate for growth mindset, and I would like to also echo to his advocacy about encouraging every people to transfer from know-it-all to a learn-it-all mindset and to continuous learning and be open and collaborative.
Okay, but last but not least, Marinda, you can wrap up our panel.
Okay, to echo with what Xiangrong mentioned, our CEO is also a case of for international education. He is also India. So you can see that we see a lot of business leaders actually from India, and they got higher education in the U.S. and they are contribute globally. So I think I still have confidence in China and in international exchange, because as we reopen our borders, we see the fact is that our test volume rebound. And we see a lot of programs and teachers and students, they take their summer holiday to go to everywhere. So that's a very positive sign. I think to encourage talent cultivation, the first step is to encourage talent mobility. And based on the mobility, when our kids, they are there, and our young people, they are there, they can have a more exchange, and they can have their own feelings about different cultures, so they can build their own global mindset, which is quite essential. And to combine with the quick development of technology, I think it will also empower us to better position us. So career journey is a long journey. We cannot prepare everyone with full knowledge to ensure they are capable for all the career steps. But at least we can ensure that we need to take this as a long marathon. That is, we need to build up with different skill set. But finally, our talents, they can be able to better equip them with the technology support and with their global mindset. And finally, they can shine everywhere in the global. Thank you.
Thank you, Marida. You did a great conclusion as well. I think today we just conducted a fantastic discussion about how to build up kind of mechanism for sustainable cultivation and cooperation. I think this topic itself is sustainable, as we should talk about more how to collaborate with each other among different countries, different sectors, and frame the policies of sustainable talent and the talent growth itself. So I think we deliver wonderful panel and discussion for our audiences. I think tomorrow we will have a live stream and the record of our today's discussion. We can make more people heard about what we talked and broadcast these ideas. It's very, very important, I think, for China and for the world. The topic itself is very, very crucial for our globalization and education and talent, of course, self. Thank you so much. Thank you all the panelists from different sectors, from the embassies, from government, from higher education, and the enterprises, multinational companies. Thank you all. Thank you, our audience.
谢谢各位亲爱的嘉宾，上午参与到我们的这个论坛过程当中。And thank you so much for coming. We'll make a photo together, like a family photo for this panel of discussion. 来，请我们的摄像师到前方为我们照一个照片。 Okay, thank you for coming, and thank you again. It has been very inspiring discussion and debate about the future in the sustainable development in the talent cultivation in the future. 再次感谢各位参与到今天论坛的各位嘉宾。2023年国际人才可持续发展论坛的上午部分的论坛环节到此就告一段落。欢迎大家在午休后于下午2点再次回到同一个地方、同一个时间，2点回到我们的会场进行下半场的环节。那现在先跟大家做一个小小的预告哈，我们下午呢会有2场主题论坛，分别是与联合国妇女署中国办公室合作的论坛2，围绕促进性别智能的商业实践和投资，如何实践，如何投资。另外一个论坛3是由联合国专家以及国际教育专家带来的。以可持续教育培养可持续人才，如何培养，如何可持续，所以这个都是今天下午的看点。Thank you again for coming, and this concludes the morning session of the 2023 Global Talent Sustainable Development Forum. So please come back at 2 o'clock in the afternoon for the coming sessions to come. And just a quick note for you, in the afternoon we will bring you 2 forums, namely the Theme Forum 2 in cooperations with the UN Women China Office in promoting gender intelligence in business practice and also in investment. And the second one will be the other forum brought to you by the UN expert and international education expert. There'll be a great moment for you to have more shares, views from the international experts. And so I will say, enjoy your lunch break, and we'll see you later. 一会儿见，大家午休